Can you feel it? The primal urge to manifest another one of my dream dresses. Yeah. There is one thing I know for certain lives deep in my soul. My crafter's audacity. The tendency to look at a costume or a prop made by professionals and think, yeah, I can make that. And this time around, the Jolly Holiday dress from Mary Poppins. Okay, this is an involved costume, probably a little above my skill level, but I just, we're gonna give it a shot. And this video is gonna be a little bit different than what I usually do because I feel like costuming and cosplay can be a little intimidating. I'm breaking this video into 3 different parts. The 3 different ways that if I'm going about making a cosplay, these are the ways that I'm gonna do them. Number 1, buying or commissioning the outfit. Number 2, thrifting. And finally, number 3, just making it out of scratch or mostly from scratch. I think the Jolly Holiday dress is gonna work well for this because there are, even though it doesn't look like it, a lot of separate components that can be thrifted or schmoozed. I talk so much with my hands. Like, stop! Can't keep these noodles contained. Before we do anything though, it's time for a costume breakdown. After studying this a bit, it looks like Julie is wearing this undergarment with a petticoat. It is multicolored, we're going to attempt that. Then we have the base skirt, the overskirt, the blouse with all the floral details and frilly bits, and then the corset. How this video will go is I will show you all 3 different ways of making this, and then at the end we have a big old comparison. Let us start with method number 1. Big screen for big purchases. How millennial of me. So firstly is, I suppose, the easiest. I've done this quite a few times. Some costumes just make more sense that way. A lot of suit-based costumes like my Austin Powers, other costumes like Alira from Van Helsing, I bought from a seamstress on Etsy. Now that is in no way a cheap option, but if you personally don't find yourself having the skill to do it, it is really nice to support a seamstress or a costumer. Another option, the Halloween costume. Personally for me, I try to find used. Good thing about Halloween costumes is that a lot of times people wear them once and then want to get rid of them. So let's see what we've got. Boop. First thing that pops up is this Halloween costume. It's not too shabby. I'm sure it's made of the most polyester plastic material you could ever suffocate your skin cells with. And then you have ones on Etsy that people are selling because they're handmade, a little bit more expensive. Wow. And sun is coming back out. We're good. Oh, you can even get a Mary Poppins pet costume. Bravo. I think I'm gonna purchase one of the Halloween costumes, fun.com. And I guess we'll see what kind of quality that is.
Eventually.
It's here. Let's see what we got here. So opening this up, it's not the worst Halloween costume I've seen of a movie costume in my life. It's got some cute details, and actually the corset bit, quote unquote corset bit, is not that bad. The skirt actually has a decent amount of volume. The texture of it makes me want to claw my own skin off, but Then it came with some cute little gloves, a little detachable collar piece, and the hat, which is not too bad for the price I paid. It came with a lot of stuff. If you would like to see what it looks like, you're gonna have to wait. Ooh, I'm such a tease. On to method 2. Armed with 2 separate iced coffees, let's talk about the second method, which is thrifting, or finding secondhand and modifying it to your purposes. It's gonna be a little tricky because it is kind of a historically inspired costume. I would say is probably my favorite method. I am someone who likes to not do a lot of work. Why sew something from scratch if it exists and you can get it secondhand for cheap? Good enough. That applies to my life and also any costume that I make. If you go to a convention and your costume maybe isn't 100% accurate, who's gonna know? No one's gonna know, okay? Generally, I do a lot of my thrifting online. Don't like going to thrift stores and searching blindly. With thrift store prices in Massachusetts, you're not saving that much money. My favorite places to do this: Depop or Poshmark or ThredUp. Hit Google up with a very specific search term, and then whatever pops up that's cheaper or more accurate, I go with that. I don't really have a preference.
Oh, sorry.
You're all right. I had some leftover credits from previous sponsorships in my ThredUp account, so I am probably gonna go with that because it means that I don't have to spend money. let's try Google first. First thing I'm actually gonna do is Jopley holiday. No. Oh, I'm really good at typing. I'm going to pull up a reference so that I have it. Edwardian blouse with collar used. Right here you got Poshmark, thread up. With this method, you have to decide your comfort level of good enough or close enough. Satin, red corset top. And again, Poshmark, Depop, $5. Now, granted, I think this is supposed to go over your bubbles. You could easily modify circle skirt used, and then you got options. So that's one way of doing it. Now I'm gonna show you what I do thread up. This is not sponsored specifically, but I have worked with them in the past. They have this little function at the top here, and it's an image search. For cosplays, I can literally upload this picture of Mary. Okay, just kidding, this one didn't work. That's kind of the tricky part, is you need like a very clear picture of it. Okay, here we go. For whatever reason, it was not registering that her blouse was a separate entity. What it's done up top here is broken it down. Some that are pretty spot on and then some that aren't. That's pretty close. So for this, I am going to go with this top. I'm now gonna look at the corset. A little less options because, you know, that's not really a normal piece of clothing. For this, I have chosen Harvest, the little corset part. Long white skirt. So we got some options here, not a lot of fullness. I think I'm gonna go 2 skirts. I have a base layer and then an over layer, which is a little bit sheer. I've ordered these, now we just gotta wait a little bit. You know, I just keep trying to make pigtails work for me. I feel like a toddler. Does this not look like I'm asking for uppies? And so this will go like so, with like a petticoat underneath to give it some volume. On top of that, this might not work. This might be a little too pencil-y. You can only poof it out so much, but it might be okay. For the top, the high collar, the neck decoration, the neckoration as you know I love to call it. Last but not least, the bottom of this, a little modification and a little destruction. This is already absolutely covered in dog hair. Ooh, pardon me. You know, the top half of this that needs to be seam ripped, maybe with some interfacing on the back, make it nice and thick. All of the little red accessories, so the little bows and ribbons. Paint some white stripes on that little corset bit. Ever so slight color difference.
To fix that, it's time for a tea bath. Once I brewed up some English breakfast and strained it into a different pot, I dunked this so fast, I literally only kept it in for about 3 seconds. Honestly, this worked a little too well, and so the color was a little bit off. But I reversed it with a little bleach bath. Now it's corset time. So once fully seam ripped, it actually wasn't too bad when I put it on my body. I do want to make it a little bit sturdier. So I grabbed some fusible interfacing from my stash, ironed it on there, and then cut it to shape. This isn't a huge difference, but it feels a lot nicer now. To finish this one up, I added some bows to the skirt, and then some trim around the collar and armbands. We'll just have to wait to see the final result. For now, method 3.
Right then, the final method, just making it yourself. This way is generally the most accurate way to do things, but also sometimes the most expensive. This is the part of the process that I dread, and that is, you know, having not started. I'm gonna be honest with you, sewing sucks. Oh, it sucks so bad. I almost always feel like this, and then once I start getting involved in the project, that is when I start to get excited and I start enjoying making things. Man, my posture is horrible. I like that I'm cosplaying Mary. In reality, I would probably be her worst nightmare.
She would hate shrimp mode.
Shrimp is for cocktails, you absolute garbage woman. Whoa, Mary. As far as patterns, this one, I think that matches Mary's pretty damn well, and then we'll add like the frilly what's-its from Mood. White viscose Georgette. Really soft, movable, a little see-through, which is what I want.
I'll be using this for the blouse and the overskirt.
Lace flowers.
These I will be chopping up and ironing onto the blouse and the skirt, just like Mary's. I also got some trim with ribbon, which you saw in the thrifting portion, as well as more trim and then even more later on.
Let's go down to business. Right then, we have front, back, collar, sleeves, and then these three are for the lining, which I don't even think I'm gonna need. I have a slip that I'm gonna wear underneath. I think I just need the top layer of this.
I know what you're thinking and probably yelling, Rachel, iron your flipping fabrics. And you're right, I definitely should have done that. This fabric is the absolute devil. It's like sewing tissue paper. I did iron them after cutting them out, which seemed to work fine, but you know, Mary said in every job that must be done there is an element of fun, but she clearly has never sewn thin fabrics. Eventually, though, I was able to pin it all together and try it on. And it was actually looking pretty good, aside from looking like the monster from Pan's Labyrinth. I'll be honest, I was expecting a disaster when it came to sewing this, but my machine handled it like a champ. Cue me sitting here trying to figure out if I could make a circle skirt out of this for a little bit too long. Eventually, I just decided to make my own pattern piece, weighing it down instead of pinning this time. Day 2 of this project. This is kind of the part where I start to get a little bit more excited. Today's kind of a weird day where I'm waiting on things to be delivered. There are things that I can do in the meantime. I'm gonna write it down because, I don't know, I'm a very tactical person. I can make a million to-do lists on my phone, but I need to actually physically write it down and de-scramble what's going on up here. Also, I like to make it into a little checkbox situation because who does not love checking off a box when you've done something? If you've never tried it. Let me think. Okay, today probably do the collar, dye some of the trim because the trim is still very bright white, which you've probably already seen that I did a tea bath. As you're seeing this, it's already happened, but I haven't done that yet. The pattern piece for the little mini corset, probably work on the frilly bit. We can paint the shoes. So the underskirt, I believe I have a nice thick white fabric in my stash, which I can use for that. Yes, I am going to have a petticoat, but the goal of the underskirt, have it retain a nice shape. Mary's is so voluminous, and I really want that. It's a lot of little bits, but very important little bits. All right, team, let's go. It's that time again, baby. I could not find any duct tape in my entire house, so I used frog tape instead. It seemed to work fine. Once it was all wrapped, I drew out the design of Mary's corset. I did in fact learn my lesson the first time, and I ironed this before I started working on it. This is literally the same exact thing I did for the overskirt. I decided to make both of these skirts elastic at the waist so they would be super easy to pull on. I then tried it on with the petticoat I was going to wear and had an out-of-body experience.
It's such a jolly day with you, bro. Hi. Man. Whoa. I don't care how old I get, the dopamine hit I get from a floofy skirt. Ooh.
Then it was time to paint the shoes, which I just bought online, and honestly, it's kind of a shame that I'm going to be ruining these and I might order another pair. taking white acrylic paint, mixing it with my favorite thing ever, fabric medium, and just going to town. Just trying to follow the reference of Mary's shoes. And then it was time to experiment. From what I can tell, her petticoat is a pink layer and then a coral layer. So I've separated out the layers. I'm gonna dunk this one in coral and then this one in pink. I was just figuring this out as I went along. It looks a little ectoplasmic, but you know. After about 20 minutes, I took it out and I would say it successfully worked. And then it was time for pink, which also worked, but I think this was a little too vibrant. It's a little bit 80s where I probably should have gone with a pale pink, but you know what? No one's really gonna see it, so.
I'm in the zone. It is now day 3 of this build. We're past all the boring stuff. This project is making me quite emotional and nostalgic. I was merely listening to the soundtrack and to Jolly Holiday yesterday. My eyes started welling up.
Why?
I'm either PMSing or I just really love Mary Poppins. I think it's both. I am going to work on the corset. How I think I'm going to do this, because I do want it to be structured, is going to be made up of those pattern pieces that you saw yesterday.
In between the seams, I am taking this piping from my stash, but I'm dyeing it the slightest bit pink. You guessed it, just like Mary's. The middle layer is where the boning is going to go. I'm just going to use that white satin that I used for the underskirt. And then the final layer underneath is the lining, just one piece of those same red satin fabric. Once that was all pinned together, I wanted to make sure that it actually fit as intended. And then I could take it all apart and put the piping in the middle. And then it was time to sew. This was such a simple process, but it just makes it look so fancy. I was just having a little moment because I feel like I've really come far in my sewing journey and I was just kind of proud of myself, okay? It was time for the middle layer, so I just pinned and cut out that white satin fabric. The boning channels I kind of just made up from my previous work with corset patterns. Once I sewed the channels, it looked like this. And the best part is adding the boning, which I just use long zip ties. Rounding them off so they're not super sharp, and then just sliding them in. After then cutting out the final layer, I put them all together in this order. It's kind of confusing, but basically I had to put the piping between the first layer and then the final layer. And once all of that was sewn, I turned it inside out. I still honestly can't believe this worked so smoothly, as you can tell by my victory screech.
Yes!
Also, the petticoat was done drying, so I tried that on. Replaced some of the ribbon in that trim with red ribbon, as you saw. Started adding that floral embroidery to both the blouse and the overskirt. Made the collar and then attached the collar to the blouse. This is all the assembly process, which was so satisfying to start to see it come together. And then it was time for the frilly whatsit. I tell you, I had no idea what I was doing, so I figured it had to be something like this kind of shape, and then gathered from the bottom to the top to make those ruffles. And actually, I wasn't completely wrong. It was just a little too long and needed a trim. Then did my best to copy the trim on it, including this little piece of trim that I had dyed. Another part of this process that I cannot believe actually worked.
I very specifically feel like at the end of Don't Look Under the Bed, when the boogeyman becomes the boogie person. Is that too niche? I don't know.
At this point, the end is in sight, and I just had to start assembling more things and adding more details onto everything. And then wig styling, which is the actual bane of my existence. Let's pretend I cut these bangs with really professional hairstyling scissors. At first I tried heat curling this with curling irons and then letting it set, but that didn't work as well as I wanted it to, so I switched to steam. Then I opened up the hat that I had ordered from Etsy. I'm not gonna lie to you, this was a little bit of a disappointment because it was kind of floppy. I tried hitting it with some hat stiffener, but I could only do so much. It is what it is, but it's time to transform into Mary. The transformation.
I'm gonna keep this short and sweet because it is actually 5,000 degrees in this room right now, as you can tell by my glistening visage. I feel like I got a little head start on this because I did Maria from Sound of Music not that long ago. Do I remember literally anything that I did? No. Just be warned, things are about to get a little sensual. Oh! I'm sorry. I think this project and the heat officially together have driven me mad. Editing Rachel, if you could kindly assist me by putting Julie's lovely face next to mine. Thanks, champ. I'll remember this in our yearly review. Might even give you a raise. I'm turning on the AC, getting in the zone. Let's go.
I will admit, with choosing characters from movies this old, it's kind of hard to find good reference photos of their face front on. But I did my best to match the eyebrows and the makeup, shaping my nose to look a little bit more like hers. Try to make my eyes look a little bit more downturn. Now looking at this reference image, I think I went a little bit too much on the bottom of my makeup, but it's fine. Her lips are just ever so slightly longer than mine, so I faked that with some lipstick. And then it was time for the contacts. I love adding skin texture, like a little bit of freckles. It still wasn't looking quite right, so I wanted to add the wig. This needed a little bit more zhuzhing. I still kind of have my issues with this, but overall, I think it's fine and ready for the reveal.
Wow.
All right, let's talk. Now a little wrap up and comparison. That, my friends, was the 3 ways that I go about making a costume. I think the comparison is pretty obvious, although I choose each way in different circumstances, and one is not necessarily better than the other. In some ways, perhaps. Like, obviously, this is the most accurate. I feel the best in this because it's made for my body and my proportions, but that's not to say that the other 2 wouldn't work in some situations. The Halloween costume felt horrible on my body. It was so polyester and tight. It was clearly not well made. It was falling apart while I was wearing it. There were moments that weren't that bad. I think the corset and skirt it wasn't too bad. You could probably take that, rip it off from the top, and then use that. The hat and gloves, I like this better than the hat that I bought for a lot of money. So I think that's kind of a testament to expensive isn't always better. Thrifting, I wouldn't say exactly measured up to the vision that I had for it, but I do think it's a cute outfit. It's not exact by any means, but it still reads Mary Poppins. If you wanted to do a cheaper Halloween costume, a Disney bound, thrifting I would say works more for characters that are wearing modern clothing, or if you're doing like an apocalyptic thing where you're just going to destroy the clothes anyways. Still my favorite method because I'm lazy. And then I cannot believe I made this in 3.5 days. Am I okay? I am in love with it. I look at it and I'm like, there's no way that I made that. It felt so out of reach because it's such an iconic costume, and once you break down a costume into different parts, everything is much more attainable. A couple things I want to change. The corset is a little long, I think. Kind of tube-like. So what I'm going to do, honestly, as a quick fix, take apart the seams and move this up a little. Even that just makes such a difference. The wig, it is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I hate it so much. There wasn't enough hair in the wig to do like a voluminous updo. I can't get the bangs right. It's a little too dark. It's just too much futzing with it. If you have any ideas for stiffening that hat, I would love to know because I'd still really like to use it. I was fighting for my life with that hat. I waited too long to open that because I just thought that it was going to be fine. Also, I opened the Halloween costume way too late. Otherwise, I would have just worn this. It is what it is. We live and we learn. I never expect something to go 100% smoothly when I wear a costume for the first time. I have at least 2 conventions I want to wear this to, so I got to get on fixing that wig. This video was a lot to take on in 5 days, but I hope that it was at least informative and helpful in seeing the 3 different ways. Probably could have just stuck this video with just making this and that's it, but I really wanted to explore cheaper ways and easier ways for people that can't, sit down and sew this, don't have the time or the skill. We're about to get a lot of rain, so I'm gonna head back inside. If you like more of this cosplay stuff and the makeup transformations, I have a lot of those over on Patreon, $5 a month. Patreon.com/RachelMaksy. Also, Maxoween's coming up, so there's gonna be a lot more. I love you whether you're new or old to this channel. If you're new here and you feel like sticking around, feel free to subscribe. I upload every other Friday. And we have fun here. We have fun. Okay, I gotta go. Also, a huge shout out to Roger Williams Park Zoo for letting me film in their carousel. The attendant was a legend and a hero and moved barriers for us and got it going a couple times. So sweet, so amazing. I'm so thankful. It was so fun. Okay, that's it. Goodbye. I love you.
Here you go.
Hate to see you leave, but I love to watch you go.
Short-circuited, hold on. This is like ultra bright. Sorry, I was like, honk honk.
You look beautiful. Penguins would love you.